Just so you guys know, this is a little bit of a long review, so this may need to be a two-parter. So I'm just going to preface that up front. This is likely going to be part 1 of 2. Hello, AEW friends and familia. My name is Christian with Duality of Wrestling. Don't mind me moving the mic closer so you guys can hear me a little bit better. Thanks so much for checking out the podcast and the channel. We just got a chance to go through and watch last night's AEW Dynamite. It was a little bit of an unexpected show. I didn't necessarily see a few of the things coming that occurred last night. So let's check it out. Let's go through it and see what we thought. We open up with a hot promo from Will Ospreay talking about the last time he was in Arena Mexico, referring to when he was obviously competing in the main event at Grand Slam Mexico last week. I wasn't totally sure if it was that show he was referring to or the previous show that AEW ran in Mexico. But either way, he talked about getting the news while he was there from his mother that his grandfather had passed away while he was in Mexico, and he was obviously distraught about that. He talked about he was very close with his grandfather, so that was a passing that hit him hard, especially knowing that his grandfather couldn't be there to see him wrestle at Wembley, see him marry his beautiful wife, Alex Windsor, and use that as a way to sort of stoke the fires going in towards All In Wembley this year, and he called out Kenny Omega. Instead, he ended up getting Don Callis. Don Callis talked about how he's the common thread of the success of Kenny Omega, that Kenny tried to do it without Callis and failed, that Will didn't get his first win over Kenny Omega until Callis was in Will's corner. So basically he said, you're going to try and go it alone too, and the same thing's going to happen to you that happened to Kenny, and that brought out the Don Callis family to jump Will. The RPG Vice came in, Jake Doyle, eventually Mark Davis, all laying the beating to him until eventually Kenny Omega comes out to make the save with a lead pipe in hand. He cleaned house, gave Will the save, and then sort of like condescended to Will a little bit. He said Will just can't, help himself but wear his heart on his sleeve. Kenny only really believes in Will when Will is emotional and makes him believe in himself. But says Kenny can't help him again, and from here on out, it's just he's on his own. And Will says he appreciates the help, but he didn't ask for it, and going forward, he won't need it. So Kenny looked a little bit miffed that his condescending attitude after he helped out Will Ospreay didn't exactly do a lot for him. So we're getting a little bit of slowly further building tension there. Even as Don Callis' family emerges as a common enemy of both Ospreay and Kenny Omega. So we'll see how that plays out going forward. We've only got 17 days left until All In, folks, as of this recording on Thursday, the day after Dynamite. So we'll have to see what happens between now and then. I've gotten some feedback that maybe we're going to do a couple tag matches with Kenny and Will against the DCF. I suppose that's possible, and it would fit, normal formulaic wrestling booking of two baby faces against, who are in a feud against each other, teaming up in the can they coexist thing that other promotions like to do. I'm not sure AEW will do that out of the gate. Obviously, they teased it very strongly here, but I also don't think they use those lines of, I won't help you again going forward, and Will saying, okay, cool, I didn't ask for it and I don't need it, if they were going to go the route of having them tag up against the Callis boys. So I'm not sure that's the way they're going to go, but I'm intrigued to see what happens leading up to All In. We got a cup of video package of the Continental Cup happening so far, and that leads us into MJF taking on Speedball Mike Bailey and Nick Wayne for the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet match for the number 1 contendership to the AEW World Championship following All In, but obviously the Gauntlet match will take place at All In. We already have Andrade El Idolo, who is locked into the number 1 spot by virtue of his win in a qualifier last week. So the qualifier this week is to see who will be starting the match off with Andrade. Now, MJF feels like the overwhelming favorite here, and there's no reason he shouldn't. He is one of the top guys in the company, whereas Nick Wayne has not won a singles championship in AEW yet, and neither has Speedball Mike Bailey. So obviously MJF is the clear favorite here. Early on, MJF put hands on ring announcer Justin Roberts and insists on being introduced as the one true champion. He was also wearing an elbow pad that said exactly the same. Also, as a fun little wrinkle, MJF was wearing a shirt that said "Better Than You" in Spanish as a nod to his beef with Andrade. Everything that man does is gold. There are so many small Easter eggs he puts into all the things he does that are just so fun to like check out from an audience standpoint. It really makes it easy to invest in the character and have fun while doing it, even though he's a heel. MJF also had a little bit more than usual outbreaks on his back. I don't know if he's dealing with the solar opposites holy trinity of back knee, sack knee, and crack knee, but it was at least one of the three. So MJF, if there's some Accutane that we can get you for your back, that would be great. I say that as somebody who uses it himself because my complexion is a mess. Nick Wayne also hit a gorgeous looking somersault to the outside on Mike Bailey. Just so fluid. He's just going to be a stud in his career. He is so young and he's already doing very, very great stuff in the ring. When he gets more of the character work down, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And that's something we actually got to see a little bit in this match, as we got a little bit of a mini alignment spot between Nick Wayne and MJF, where they sort of worked together a little bit. MJF asked him to hold Speedball up and said, "Here, I'm going to teach you something," and gives him a great shot with a fist to the ribs and says, if a man can't breathe, he can't fight, which also is a really subtle nod to like the Karate Kid franchise. I believe it's specifically Karate Kid 3 that the antagonist says that to Danny LaRusso, and Speedball being kind of a Karate Kid-esque character. God, it's just so under the radar. It's so subtle. If you don't get it, it doesn't take away anything from the segment. But if you do, it so perfectly enhances what's going on and makes you appreciate it all that more. So I love that MJF is just casually throwing in Karate Kid 3 references into a brief interaction he has with Nick Wayne. Doesn't obviously last long because MJF is our scumbag. After he tells Nick Wayne to, quote, "hit a sick move, one of your sick moves, bro." Wayne goes for the cover. MJF pulls him off, goes for the cover himself. Wayne breaks it up, and they obviously have issues there. MJF says, "You're getting the privilege just to be in the ring with me." When Wayne takes umbrage with that and turns MJF back around, he is immediately met with a pretty stiff slap. It was great. Soon afterwards, you had a great shooting star press by Mike Bailey onto Nick Wayne for a near fall. And then towards the end of the match, we get a great callback to that body shot tip Karate Kid thing where MJF takes a hit and Nick Wayne says something like, "Thanks for the advice." Just, again, Nick Wayne is going to be very good from a character work standpoint eventually. And when he does, the sky is the limit for him. And if he's able to learn a lot of these nuances from getting some ring time with a guy like MJF, who does this better than anybody else in wrestling, look out. We got an anti-air punch from MJF into a knee bomb and for a near fall broken up by a running shooting star press by Mike Bailey. He eventually hits the Ultima weapon on Nick Wayne, but MJF pulls Speedball out and he locks in the Salt of the Earth armbar onto Nick Wayne, which is what gets him the win. So as predicted, to nobody's surprise, the Casino Gauntlet match will start off with MJF in spot 2 and Andrade in spot 1. Fully expect neither of those men to win the match, guys. They're the only two ones announced for the match. Do not expect either to win. In the post-match, MJF, he did the fake-out Andrade intro, thinking that Andrade might be there. Commentary kind of gave it away earlier, saying Andrade wasn't cleared to travel, so he wasn't in Vegas. So that didn't work as well as MJF might have hoped. But also, MJF put Will and Kenny Omega on notice for post All In, saying the 1-2 champion is coming to reclaim his undisputed championship. Cool. We're setting that up pretty nicely. And the good thing about this is I do fully intend or expect for the MJF Andrade beef to continue through to All Out in Chicago, where they'll probably have either a number one contenders match or a gimmick match of some kind. Maybe even MJF puts the Triple B on the line. That would be of interest, or the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Either way, I think it'll be very interesting. But that means we can stretch out either of these men or both of these men chasing the World Heavyweight Championship. It does not have to happen straight away afterwards, and I don't think it should, and I don't think it will. I think we're going to get somebody like a Moxley as an early contender, or maybe even a Kyle Fletcher as an early contender. But I don't think it's going to be MJF or Andrade that win that match or are the first man up for Will Ospreay, ideally being their first challenger for the World Heavyweight Championship. We get a promo from the Divine Dominion at the Brawling Birds bar setting. They ended up dropping 2 full beer glasses to shatter on the floor, saying that the Brawling Birds have had a good run. That's about it, and that they're only getting this title shot because it's in their home country, and that's pretty pathetic. I mean, that's a fair critique by the heels. The Brawling Birds hadn't been on TV a great deal prior to maybe a month ago. I believe Hayter was a little bit dinged up, but they'd primarily been working in singles programs prior to that. So I think that's a fair critique. And again, the best heel work is always done when the heels not only can believe what they say, but when they can phrase it in a way to the audience, or the audience can believe what they say. They don't have to like it, but at least when the reasoning makes sense, the heels become understandable and not just dicks for no reason, or in this part, lady dicks, as they usually are with their AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions. We get then Mick Foley interviewing the Bang Bang Gang and Jay White in advance of his Continental Cup match tonight against David Finlay. David Finlay has been a thorn in his side, he says, since coming back. He said it was appropriate to go after him, with the shillelagh shots that they've traded back and forth. But he, talks about looking forward to finishing things up and saying he hopes it's Moxley he faces in the finals. And given the issues between the Death Riders, the Dogs on one side and the Bang Bang Gang on the other side, that makes perfect sense. And if you watched my Continental Cup preview, you'll note that Jay White is one of the guys I think can easily make the finals. So I would not be surprised at all if they end up going that route. I'm not convinced they will, because I think, either Nigel, Eddie Kingston, or Kyle O'Reilly would be perfect fits as well. But the fact that they're already talking up Jay White and Moxley when the first round hasn't even ended could be a little bit of a giveaway. We'll have to see. So we have Jay White and David Finlay happen. It's a fine match. It's nothing exceptional. It does seem like a little bit of a clean blow off as Jay White gets the easy win, countering a suplex into the the Blade Runner for the 1-2-3. Jay White moves on. David Finlay does not. That hopefully pretty nicely puts the bookmark in the feud of the Dogs and the Bang Bang Gang, and allow hopefully Jay White specifically to move on to something else that may be a bit more interesting. Okay, guys, that wraps up part 1 of our review of Dynamite for August 12th, 2026. Come back, I'll get part 2 up very shortly, so come on back, check out part 2.